Imagine you have a new marketing tool and your stakeholders want to use Looker Studio to analyze the marketing tool's data. How do you get the marketing tool's data into Looker Studio? You can create a Looker Studio community connector or use an existing one to connect and transform the new marketing data into a format Looker Studio can understand. Now, you have your marketing data inside Looker Studio. However, your stakeholders now want to visualize the data in a unique way Looker Studio doesn't have a visualization for. Well, you can build your own Looker Studio community visualization to display your data whatever way you want inside your Looker Studio reports. Hi! Welcome to our video series on developing with Looker and Looker Studio. I'm Jeremy, a Senior Developer Relations Engineer at Looker. In this video, we'll get you started with developing with Looker Studio community connectors and visualizations. We'll introduce you to what community connectors are, their use cases, and how you can build them and then publish them. And we'll do the same for community visualizations. By the way, a quick knowledge check. You should be familiar with AppScript and JavaScript development. You should also be familiar with Looker Studio reports, visualizations, and data sources. So what is a Looker Studio community connector? It is an AppScript-based application that allows you to connect any internet-accessible data source to Looker Studio. The connector defines the data source's schema and transforms the source's data into a format Looker Studio can understand. With a Looker Studio community connector, your report can fetch data from commercial platforms like Google Analytics or social media, your on-premise enterprise data sources, if they're accessible, your own service for your own customers, public web sources, and more. Now you know what a Looker Studio community connector is. Let's teach you how to build one. A connector is built with AppScript, which is similar to JavaScript. You will need an AppScript project, which should contain at least 2 files. An appscript.json file, which serves as your connector's manifest, containing your connector's metadata like name and description. And most importantly, you need the connector's code. In this example, we will have all our code in one file called code.js. So, what should be in your AppScript code? You must define 4 methods in your connector's code: getAuthType, getConfig, getSchema, and getData. Let's discuss each method in more detail. The getAuthType defines the authentication mechanism Looker Studio will use to get credentials for your connector's data source. In this example, your data source requires a username and password for access. Then you will need to set the auth type to user_pass. Now, when a user first installs your connector, Looker Studio will ask for the username and password and call your connector's setCredentials method so you can store the creds for data fetches. Next, you must define the getConfig method. When a user installs a connector, Looker Studio will show a configuration wizard to the user. Your getConfig method determines what configuration options Looker Studio will present. In our example connector code, we tell Looker Studio to present a text field for the user to input the name of a table. Then, we have the getSchema method. Looker Studio calls this method to understand the fields of your connector's data source. For example, our connector will define a text dimension and some aggregation metric that Looker Studio can use in a report. Lastly, we have the getData method. Looker Studio calls this method to fetch data from your connector's data source. Looker Studio passes in a request object that contains the fields it wants, the data filtering, and the connector's config parameters. Your connector then must fetch the right data and transform it to follow the schema you previously defined. You can then make use of AppScript's development environment to deploy your connector code and try it out in your own report. Once you've created a community connector, consider publishing it to the Looker Studio Connector Gallery so others can use it. It's a great opportunity to increase the visibility of your connector, help the Looker Studio community, and can also encourage more use of your connector's data source. Keep in mind, you will need to make sure your manifest properties fulfill our requirements. You can check out the publishing guidelines linked in the description below. Now you know all about Looker Studio community connectors. What about a Looker Studio community visualization? Well, it is a custom-built JavaScript visualization or application that visualizes data inside a Looker Studio report. It's a great way to enable more unique and useful insights from your data. Let's teach you how to build one. First, you must have a Google Cloud Storage bucket that will contain all the required files. The files are a JSON file named manifest.json, which contains the metadata of your visualization, a JSON file for your visualization's configuration options, a JavaScript file for your visualization's business logic, and an optional CSS file to style your visualization. Now, let's dig into each file. This manifest.json file consists of multiple string properties and the components property. This property consists of an array of component objects, each representing a visualization. The component object contains multiple string type properties like the name and description of your visualization, but it also contains the important resource property, which helps Looker Studio find the location of your JavaScript.js file, config.json file, and your optional CSS file. Once you have your manifest.json file ready, you will then need to create a JSON file for your visualization's configuration. This config.json file defines what data fields your visualization supports. In this example, we will support 1 dimension and 1 metric. The config.json file also defines what style options we want to make available to the user. In this case, we provide a fill color option that the user can set. Now, onto your visualization's JavaScript. You must import our helper library called the Looker Studio Community Component Library, or DSCC for short, to help your visualization interface with Looker Studio. Your visualization should pass in a callback function to DSCC's subscribe to data method. Then, whenever it reports data or the visualization style changes, Looker Studio will call the callback function so your visualization can update its data visualization or style accordingly. DSCC also provides other helper functions to help you visualize your data, like the getHeight method. With all your code in place, you can try out your visualization in your own Looker Studio report by pointing Looker Studio toward your manifest file in your GCS bucket. After you tested your visualization, just like community connectors, you can publish your visualization to the Looker Studio gallery so others can use it. It's a great opportunity to increase the visibility of your visualization and also help the Looker Studio community. Just make sure to follow our publishing guidelines linked in the description below. We hope we gave you a good understanding of how you can develop with Looker Studio community connectors and visualizations. You have the ability to import data from any publicly accessible data source and the flexibility to visualize the data in any way you see fit. If you want to get started, try out these couple steps. Complete our Looker Studio Community Connector Collab to build a basic connector. Then, try out our Looker Studio Community Visualization Collab to build a visualization too. Lastly, consider submitting your community connector or visualization to our public galleries so others can try them out. We've linked to the collabs and publishing guidelines in the description below. We hope you enjoyed watching our video series on developing with Looker and Looker Studio. We introduce you to the many ways you can build tools and experiences to fulfill your stakeholder and customer needs, from Looker blocks, embedding, and extensions, to Looker Studio's linking API, community connectors, and community visualizations. There's a lot of innovative and technical possibilities to explore. Check out our documentation, collabs, and open source repositories, and give it a shot. Thanks for watching.